Hello again. I'm Jake.
And I am Marlin.
AKA Gee. And welcome to another Fresh from the Theater review. We just got back from seeing Indiana Jones in the Dial of Destiny. The fifth and hopefully last entry in the Indiana Jones franchise, because I think it's clear they're not good at doing legacy sequels with this franchise. I went to see this with you, and she's not here, but Grandma came along too, and she enjoyed it. What did you think?
I liked it. I liked it a lot. For a lot of different reasons. Want me to go through? Okay, first of all, it kept you involved. It was a very broad scope of places and different things happening as the story progressed. It gave you background that you didn't have before. Indiana Jones hates Nazis. They had Nazis. Indiana Jones was an archaeologist. You got a lot of archaeology and history in this, and it was very typical. He got to use the whip, and I thought they did a good job of showing him as a younger man in World War II doing Indiana Jones stuff, and then as a guy that's my age.
Older, actually.
Slightly older. And not being able to do the Indiana Jones stuff as energetically.
I came out of the film kind of on a I didn't love it, but I didn't hate it mentality. It was somewhere in between. Like, there's a lot of stuff in this that I really liked. There were some great story ideas. But then there were some parts I really didn't care for, and the execution of some of these great ideas was a little muddy. Like, George Lucas, Steven Spielberg are not behind the creative helm of this film, but it feels like the original Indiana Jones trilogy. It was Lucas's ideas, and Spielberg worked his magic to make them brilliant. This almost feels like a Lucas idea that he did all by himself. And the people behind this new film, the director is James Mangold, who has had his own bumpy run of directing credits. Like, he made The Wolverine, where Wolverine goes to Japan, which was a pretty mixed bag. But then he did Logan, which was an excellent latter sequel of an ongoing franchise. So, was not sure what to expect with this, and the trailers may look like it could be fun, but also maybe a little awkward, like Indiana Jones, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. The main thing I remember about that, because I haven't seen it in over a decade, the main thing I remembered was it was awkward and felt very unnecessary, but showed Harrison Ford still had it. This film, yeah, Harrison Ford still has it, and I'm not sure it feels unnecessary, but it definitely, it feels like there was some care put into it, as far as knowing this is probably the last time Ford will don the whip. But there was just so many bumps, and the first part of this movie I really thought was excellent. Like, the first 45 minutes was fucking brilliant. The opening, which is a extended flashback, they did a great job with CGI to make Harrison Ford look young again. And we got to see Indiana Jones fighting the fucking Nazis. He has a new sidekick briefly, played by Toby Jones, who has a few annoying moments, but overall he's a good friend. And then the middle part of the film, and I liked the first part, but I fucking hated the middle of this film.
For what reasons?
Mostly for the new characters they brought in. In this film, Indiana Jones, his new sidekick partner is Helena Shaw, played by Phoebe Waller-Bridge, who is his goddaughter that we never heard about before, but they bring it in. This character started out pretty good, but in the middle, they really made it kind of murky as to what the character was all about. Like, the character starts out, they bring her in, and they have good chemistry, her and Harrison Ford, in their first few scenes. And then they do this kind of what is she, what isn't she thing, where she appears to be a thief who sells stolen artifacts, and she lies to Indiana repeatedly, and is just a complete bitch about it later on. And when this happened, it was very easy for me to hate the character, and then they brought in this new kid character who's kind of her sidekick, and right away it feels like they're trying to duplicate what they did with Short Round in the Temple of Doom, but I'll just say right now, this fucking brat is not Short Round. Short Round was hilarious, he was awesome, he was very likable. This kid, every time there was a peril situation where people died, I just kept hoping he'd get shot, but alas. And then in the third act, which is a lot better than the middle part, but I love the first act, hate the middle act, last act, kind of goes back up, but then kind of goes the Stephen King route of endings, where they just throw everything, and it's a little unclear what's happening at times, and I don't know, it just seemed like a big, it almost blew up in their face.
No, I didn't get that at all. In the middle of the movie, where they made the female lead be, what do we call it, crass commercial and all this other kind of thing, and she did use good old Indiana Jones for her purposes and so on and so forth, and it took a while before she, things changed in the third act. But and yes, and that did drag a bit. I'll say that. The kid was just a kid. He didn't do a bad job, and they had a couple of things they did with the role, but they kept changing where they were. They were under the ocean. They were here and there. They did time travel.
Yeah. If anyone wondering, are they going back to the magic of the original trilogy, or are they going to continue the sci-fi of Crystal Skull? It's possibly a bit of both, but yeah, now we're going into time travel, and I won't give in too much, just this idea has a lot of potential, but I'm not sure I'm completely satisfied with how they went about it. It just felt like they could have done so much more with it, and the action in the film, the opening action scene is fucking outstanding. There's a lot of great action scenes. However, there's two that kind of stick out as being... I just didn't care for them as much as I'm thinking you did. The chase in the Arab land. I can't remember what country it was.
You mean through the city?
Yeah.
It went on a bit.
Yeah, the car just, like, they're chasing the main bad guy, and
they're being chased.
And the Helena character, her like ex-fiance, I guess, is chasing them, and it just got annoying for me. Just went on a bit. The underwater fight, honestly, I thought it fucking sucked.
Yeah, that one was hard for them to pull off.
Mostly because I couldn't see a goddamn thing or tell who was who.
And yeah, that wasn't their best scenes, the underwater work, but nonetheless.
As for the main villain of the film, there were some good ideas again, but overall I felt this villain was kind of underwhelming. If you thought the Russian lady from Crystal Skull was not memorable, this guy, like, if I didn't write down what his name was, I wouldn't remember. And he's played by Mads Mikkelsen, hope I'm pronouncing that right. He's best known for playing Hannibal Lecter on that Hannibal TV show. And maybe he was outstanding there, but Here, he just felt kind of, for me, generic, and he didn't stand out anyway. Like, he's not Belloc, Donovan, or Moram. I don't know. I didn't get into him and didn't really feel much by the end.
Yeah, the current prestige he would have in the modern time, that wasn't too well introduced. But he was consistent, and he was an evil man and very much Nazi-ish, which of course Jones didn't like because he knew him when he was a Nazi, and on and on. So, I mean, when the Nazis were active in the world, put it that way.
Well, I find the character kind of one note. I will give him this. The bad guys in this movie are pretty goddamn brutal.
Yes, they are.
They're just shooting people left and fucking right. As for the characters who return, other than Indiana Jones, the trailer showed that Sala was back, played by John Rhys Davies.
Mm-hmm.
And he's not in it very much, and
No.
they almost tease something, but it never goes anywhere. However, it is nice to see him again, and Sala, he's just lovable all around.
Yes.
And I won't say how, because it gets into, like, the third act. Karen Allen is back as Marion, but not in the way you probably would have liked. And when she was on screen, I just felt my heart warm up, because it felt, I could feel the magic of Raiders of the Lost Ark again. And the scene she has with Harrison Ford, all it did was make me think of, I don't give a shit how old they are. I could have much preferred a movie that was just the two of them again. I get it. The actors are old now. You feel like you need a little young blood. But if there's anything the Expendables sequel showed, you bring in too many young actors in a series that's supposed to be about the old-time legacies. You just feel like you don't get your money's worth. Like, the new characters in this film, I did not care for. The Helena character did have some good moments in the last act, but I could have done without her, the kid. Like, Marion, saw, like, hell, maybe a grown-up short round. I could have done with all that, but I don't know. I don't want to keep repeating myself. All I could get from this film was great action. Harrison Ford is fucking awesome, even in his fucking 80s, but I feel like there's so much more you could have done for the last hoorah. You said you still, like, had a good time?
Oh, absolutely. You and I are not in agreement on this movie overall. There were some slow times and everything else, but it was good action. The storyline was a good storyline. It was a lot of fun to watch. It kept me going. It had action, it had drama, and it had humor. I liked it, and I would recommend it to people to go. If you liked any of the Indiana Jones in the past, I think you're going to like this. And I also feel it was a good wrap-up for the Indiana Jones world.
The humor was hit or miss with me. I feel, as you said, after Crystal Skull came out years ago, Last Crusade could have served as the perfect ending to the originals.
Mm-hmm.
But we have these movies, so make with them what you can. If you're an Indiana Jones purist, if you're a purist of the franchises created by Lucas or Spielberg, then you'll check it out either way. But like Crystal Skull, this is another movie that I feel there's a lot of good sequences I would love to rewatch on their own. Maybe just watch the scene individually, but I'm not sure I'll be in a rush to see this movie again. If I had to give it a rating, probably a 5 out of 10.
Oh, I'd do better than that. I'd call it an 8.
Well,
I like the franchise. Like I said, there's some of the parts of the movies went on a little too long. The point they were making could have been made in a much shorter time. Overall, I liked it.
well, I'm glad you did. Always hope you have a good time when we go to see films in the cinema. I'm glad we did not have another Beau is Afraid experience. And
yes, that was there was nothing redeeming about that. But this is
even I admit this film has a ton more redeeming qualities than Beau is Afraid. And last thing I'll say, because the other Indiana films never did this. Last Crusade didn't do this. Crystal Skull, as far as I remember, didn't do this. This film acknowledges the events of Temple of Doom. I am so glad they did that. Just shows, like, a lot of people like to look at Temple of Doom as the black sheep, but it shows they haven't forgotten it.
Anything goes.
Glad I got to go to the cinema with you guys.
yeah, it was fun. Warm day outside, comfortable inside, and
Hence why we're not in the fucking truck, so
yeah.
before we ramble on too much longer, we will sign off and see you hopefully again at Oppenheimer.